Radio. Right, good morning, Jason. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Graham. How are you? Good morning.
Yeah, very well, thank you very much. And hello to everybody who's going to be watching on YouTube or Facebook to this interview with Jason Stillwell, the creator of Return of the Humans album, which has just been released. Congratulations to you.
Thanks, Graham.
I
Appreciate
know,
it.
I know this has been a long time kind of coming, so we're going to have a little interview to just find more about your album creation. I was very blessed that you shared this with me after I bought a CD off you at one of your events. And yeah, I'm personally, as somebody who is really into music, I'm kind of blown away by how powerful it is sonically. There's so many different layers and levels to it as well. So I'm really excited to find out more about how it came about. Yeah, there's loads of fantastic things. What I would say to anybody watching is if they want the backstory about Jason, we're not going to chat about that because it's in another video which they can check out in the link below. So because we've already had an interview perhaps about 6 months to a year ago. So we're really going to focus on Jason as a creator. Of a distinct piece of art, sonic artwork, I think would be one way of perhaps describing it, or uh, sorry.
Said thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Does sonic artwork resonate with you?
I like that. That's very nice.
Yeah, it's super lovely. But I mean, there's so many levels to I think what you kind of do, and so I think obviously we can in this interview we can try and like explore those. We were having a little bit of a chat about the power of the word and the power of the voice when we were having a chat before we started this call. Um, and so I'm really intrigued as a creator, perhaps to hear how this idea came together or where it came from or how did it come to you. That I think that would be an interesting starting point to find out more about your creative process.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, I mean, I think so. The idea for me, I really wanted to make a meditation piece and just do it only using vocals and no instrumentation or sort of well, so my first, no, my second album that I released, which is also a meditation, was called On Earth,
Mm.
and that just using vocals. But I did one thing I did do is I sort of made so still using my vocals, but I sort of made a sort of underlying drone on that with my vocals, but I did sort of affect them. Do you know what I mean? I sort of
Yeah.
like with
Yeah.
it with so it was, it was still my vocal, but it was sort of, I mean, I sort of pitch shifted it and stuff like that. So it was sort of processed, I suppose.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then sort of sang over that is what I'd done. And I wanted to do another version that was sort of just actual vocal takes, without any sort of processing. I mean, obviously there's like reverb and and delay, there's effects on it in that sense, but there's no, yeah, they're all just real vocal takes,
Mm.
exactly they are. So I really wanted to do that, make a meditation that was that. And also for me, so in terms of the right from the beginning really of my pieces that I've recorded on my first album that I released, which is called Brand New World. There was a track on that called Return to Now, and I think there's a theme for me of remembering.
Mm.
So with sound, I think it's something whereby we can sort of tap into a lineage of using sound with intention to sort of make a connection with our own, well, make a direct connection to source, and also to bring sort of the idea of intention and working with healing and sharing in community and sharing joy and thanks. And I think it's something that humans have done for like thousands of years, before history,
Yeah.
and I've been aware, something I've been tuning into recently. You'll know that very interested in sharing the work that I do in sort of sacred sites, stone circles, that kind of thing. But something I've been aware of actually recently is the fact that the stone circles themselves and those sites themselves would have been created, as a result of people coming together probably in those places anyway, and already feeling a power and an energy in those places, and then wanting to sort of formalize that. So I think, the history, the lineage we're talking about of connecting with sound in this way through place and intention and community, something that's been done for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
So in terms of Return of the Humans, I was sort of, to me, the title was actually the thing that came to me first. I had this idea of recording another meditation just using real vocal takes only, sort of unprocessed vocal takes. And then, but the title came to me, and the reason I like the title was because Return of the Humans to me implies a kind of a return of to these ideas of sound plus intention equals manifestation, if you like, which is a very efficient and short way that was to put it, that was once shared with me by Jonathan Goldman. But I was also, I think Return of the Humans, something else I liked about it is humour and lightness is a big part of my work, and to me it almost sounded a little bit like the title of a kind of low budget 50s B movie as well. So I quite liked the fact that it had that ring to it. So for me, those combination of factors was sort of the certainly initial inception of it.
Amazing. Well, thanks for clarifying, because I've got your On Earth CD, and I love that as well. It's a fantastic listen, but intriguing to, as somebody who manipulates sound as well. It's interesting to know the creative decisions that you are making with this release, and so I'm intrigued then was there, when that idea dropped in about the concept piece, were you, because I've been alongside you at some of your Stone Circle gatherings, and I see you kind of talking about bringing through and channeling and just letting things come through. The question that cries out to me is, when you recorded, say, the first take of this recording, did you have a vision in mind, or sonically or creatively, of what you're doing, or were you just letting it all come through, and then the second take was you overdubbing the second take, and did you layer it up that way? So I suppose I'm interested in, is the end content a surprise to you in some sort of way?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because actually with both of those albums, actually, both On Earth and Return of the Humans, so even though I said about the processing part on the first one, both of them were actually very dynamic live processes. So in terms, to just briefly to touch on the previous recording, On Earth, so even though there was a processed sort of drone that I made, it was processed by me singing it into a microphone, and the guy that I was working with, Jamie Hyatt, who also mastered, remixed Return of the Humans for me, somebody I've worked with for a long time from Glasshouse Studios, a long-term friend of mine. He on the first album, so when I say processed it, we did it live. I sang into the mic, and he just like shifting it and adding verb and delay, and just did it, and we both went, yeah, that sounds, we like that, we like the energy of that, and we liked it. So it happened. It wasn't like, I sing and then he goes away,
I really like that, because it's like a live thing rather than a studio.
So it was done as a live process, and then I just layered everything else over the top.
Okay.
Same with Return of the Humans. The only part I knew of Return of the Humans, the same things. It's a very dynamic process. I do exactly what you've mentioned, alluded to in your question, which is that I get into the same space that I would do for a live event, a workshop or sacred site event, and I go to that place. You'll know already, but for anyone that's listening that doesn't know it, what I do is I say, I go in intention. I say, well, let the sounds that come through at this time come from my direct source connection, and for the highest good of all. That's the intention. I sit into that. and then I let it come. Now, with Return of the Humans, which was slightly different, where it differed from On Earth, like I've just explained the process for On Earth, we created that sort of drone, if you like, in the way that I've just said. But with On Earth, I had this one part, which is the part that starts at the start of the recording. So it's like a sort of, it's just that, and that was the part I had. I knew that that's what I wanted to use as the sort of
Right. Yeah.
that one there, and then I just started recording really, and we kept doing it till it felt like it was the time to stop.
Absolutely. Brilliant. And and how quickly did you then record take two in terms of like, was this all effectively a big one take thing at a studio at a particular space and time, or?
So what happened actually, because I don't know as well, for anyone that doesn't know, and I don't know if you know this, Graham. So I did release a version of Return of the Humans in 2014
Huh?
on a collection called Spaces, but it was which was sort of playing the idea of shorter meditations. There, it's only available on download that, so you can get it on iTunes and what have you.
Okay.
It was a 9-minute version,
Right.
and all of the things, there were 4 tracks collection, and they were all kind of that kind of length. I was sort of playing with the idea of kind of short meditations, you know what I mean, something there. But I've had it remixed and remastered, and reworked a bit for the new release, because I felt actually really strongly from that recording, I had this feeling that it felt incomplete at that length. It felt like it needed to be longer.
Okay.
In terms of the process itself, what happened was, I mean, how we did it is so I made that initial sound, and what we did is we looped that, you know what I mean. So it was a one sound, it was a take, but then we looped it to make a long drone, and then I just, to be honest, I kind of just over a couple of hours sort of just sang with it, and recorded those takes, and then we, to be honest, just moved them about over the drone so that where they sat, we felt they felt good, So that was it. So it happened quite quickly, and both of those quickly. I mean, On Earth was a similar process, I say, but yeah, Return of the Humans, both of them, they were probably, the whole recording was completed in probably, I don't know, 2-3 hours, maybe, both.
And so, in terms of this lovely intention of a longer meditative piece, is there anything intention-wise that is imbued in the depths of this recording, do you think, for people who listen to it? Because I love this idea that you're connecting to source and bringing through stuff, and I'm sure loads and loads of people out there, so many people would really lap this up, but it's interesting to think about sonically what you think might be in these tones for people.
I mean, sonically, I mean, I'm in a way, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, you'll, Graham, I'm somebody that's been interested in healing sound as a subject for a long time, and so I'm aware of your various frequencies and your tuning forks and your singing bowls and these kinds of things, and there's lots of really, really knowledgeable and excellent practitioners of those particular modalities out there, but I think for me, if there's anything that I do add that's maybe just more what I do, it's the idea of just making it about that connection. So for me, I've almost, like, as time has gone on, I almost sort of include less and less and less in what I do, because I want that intent to be simple. And even now, when I do a lot of workshop stuff with people, what I'm sharing with people is stuff that's really, really simple, works with these intentions, like, may the sound that come through us come from the highest good of from our direct connection, source connection, and for the highest good of all. And then when I'm working in groups, I maybe include a little thing about it coming into being through our joint permission.
Yeah.
So include a bit about it being for the good of each individual there,
Yeah, yeah.
and for the earth and all and all its beings and all her beings. So, there may be some slight shift in terms of the intention part, but I think in terms of sonically, what I really try and do is simplify everything actually, so that I can just get out of the way and let whatever comes through, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. Yeah, from everything that you've shared with me before. What I think is, so I'm intrigued to ask you about. I can't remember if we covered this in the previous interview. Your relationship with Source. Was there a particular light bulb moment at some point in your life that was kind of like, okay, I'm intrigued to know if there's a moment when you, because it's a very powerful whenever I've met you and had a chat with you, the way that you talk about it, and it's like an important part of my life as well. It continues to develop that way. So I'm just intrigued if there was a particular moment for you or.
Well, I mean, you and I don't know if, obviously we did a previous interview, and in that one we talked a little bit about my journey, and I think, yeah, I think I shared quite a personal experience of something that had happened to me when I was small, and I did have an experience there of sort of a kind of life-threatening situation that ended up with a sort of me having an experience of being sort of surrounded by a light. And having that in and around me. So I suppose in that sense, that part, and then even then little things, as when I was a kid. It might sound slightly, it's not silly. I know it doesn't sound silly, but I don't know what word to use. But childlike, I suppose, would be best way to use it, because it would have been, But I used to feel like when I was a kid, like I could talk to Jesus, like I could do that. I that he would, that somehow that was being heard, what I was talking about, and received, and I would feel like an energetic exchange from it. So again, I'm not implying any sort of religious, I wasn't brought up in a religious way or anything. It was just it was just something that happened for me sort of naturally. So, and again, so that stuff really, I suppose, in terms of the source connection part, and then it's always kind of been there, bubbling along in the background. I've had experiences throughout my life and what have you, and then obviously, I suppose if we talking about a light bulb moment more in terms of the sound specifically, it would be around the when I met Jonathan, and on top of Glastonbury tour and all of that. People to the previous video for that.
Wow, how lovely. Well, that does very much resonate. And yeah, I do recall very clearly what you shared in the previous video. So it's definitely worth people checking out to hear that in some depth and detail. And so I suppose I'm intrigued, partly intrigued. You're, we talked very in the pre-interview. We were talking about this idea of ancient cultures and how this is highly likely sonically has been a part of life on this planet for many years through many civilizations and cultures. And are you somebody who's quite a kind of book person who've read up and things like that, or is it, or when you're talking about that instinctual knowing, is it something that just feels like it comes to you? I just want, because I've read some of Jonathan's books, and he's a real studier of sound in different cultures, and some of his books are a proper fascinating read. So I was just wondering what your journey was with that kind of stuff.
A bit of a mixture, really, I suppose, Graham. I've read, around this stuff, and but I think a lot of it. If I'm honest, a lot of it still is this same thing. So the thing you all talk about, where you said that you found it, powerful, sort of connecting with the way I'll speak about this sort of direct source connection when I do the work that I do. I think that's overwhelmingly, that's the main part. And I think also as well for me now, I've also now got sort of like decades of like going to these sites,
Yeah,
making this connection. And I think there's a resonance there, you know, whereby you, when you make the sound and connect with the intention, and you bring in the source in, and you're also working in community, so that you get a sort of magnified energy that's sort of more than the sum of the parts. I think
Yeah.
you of the energy in that sense. I think when you do that over years and years and decades, I mean, I think I've probably absorbed lots of information from these places, you know, from the
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
crystalline structure of the stones or what have you. I'm sure there are people that are much more learned about that aspect of it that could shed more light on it. But the uh, but that's my experience actually, is that, you know, when I share in that way, there's an exchange of energy in these sites, not just in the sites, in groups. You know, it's the same thing. It's, you know, if I run a workshop in a room in a building, not a sacred site as such, you know what I mean? It's the same thing. You enter into an exchange of energy with the souls there present and the
Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
you know, and then stuff emerges from that naturally.
Oh, beautiful. I mean, I thought that might be kind of the case. You know, I kind of like, I certainly, whilst I'm somebody who will read up on books, and I do love reading books by people who've got some amazing knowledge, I do quite often, just receive wisdom, thoughts, and don't quite know where they come from. Sometimes, obviously, sometimes those are in meditations, either in the morning or in the evening. And I think it resonates with me as well when you're describing about your sort of childhood experiences, and how it feels like, from an outside observer, you know, culturally, I think lots of children can be quite fantastic, can't they? I've met some, you know, many fantastic children over the years. I used to work as a play worker and as a youth worker, and I think society can sometimes shut down some of the perceptions and understandings that you're talking about. And having, you know, met your family and chatted to your mum at Stone Circles and stuff, I can understand that you weren't getting any of that kind of closing down of that kind of stuff environmentally in your family. So it sounds what sounds beautiful is you've then gone on to embrace it, because it's had some gifts in your life, and you've got more and more evidence as time goes on that this works for you. And yeah, so that ongoing relationship is really powerful to me, because you're not basing it on necessarily stuff that you've read, but you're going from your kind of heart space. If that sounds like a fair summary of what you're kind of describing, but yeah, very, very powerful. And to me, that's like the one thing that's a real standout about your album and your work vibrationally to other people, like that energy of like just slowing down, tuning in, looking for signals and signs, and letting things come through, and letting that potential higher connection strengthen it. I mean, that to me is just hugely powerful. I mean, and you know, full of respect for you for that.
Thank you. Well, I think, yeah, I mean, there's that, because that's another big thing for me, is I think, you know, just sort of, you know, for all of us, I'm sure it's like an ongoing, lifelong, or maybe, you know, multiple lifelong process, is sort of learning to trust yourself. You know what I mean? Is sort of learning to do that, and I think, you know, so obviously in terms of sound and vocal sound particularly, I think there's an element of, you know, as we've discussed again before, you know, there's like a sort of self-consciousness element that a lot of people experience, and sort of doubt around, like, whether that, you know, because we live in a sort of performative culture around vocal expression in that way. And obviously, I'm sort of keen to sort of move away from that. Not that there's anything wrong with performance. I love performance and music. That's fantastic too. You know what I mean? But in terms of what I do and what people do with me, it just sort of move away from that, and it becomes almost about being willing to sort of overcome any self-consciousness you might have around it. Also, to trust that what you are, as you are, in terms of your voice and your ability to connect with intention, which is actually quite simple, really, an idea in essence, you know, is to be able to sort of trust that, and trust that it has value as it is, not as becoming something else, or I have to learn this technique, I have to learn how to be an overtone singer, or I have to learn this particular approach. Just really, really simple. Boil it down to what are the fundamental building blocks of it, which is intention, source connection, and expressing that through your voice, just exactly as it is.
Yeah, there's a real purity to it, isn't there, in terms of that simplification process, which for some people, I suppose, could be a big step or a big jump. But actually, what I love about it, if you look at it, say, from the concepts of alchemy, you're distilling things down and fermenting things down to the some powerful core essence things. And I think that's like super fantastic, because I think, you know, there's a culture out there now to try and suppress people, suppress the voice, and you know, there's so much power in the voice, whether it's our spoken word, or whether, you know, it's our written planning word or planning something. But yeah, just allowing stuff to come through. You know, I remember when I was a kid getting told off at school for not singing correctly when we were doing singing lessons, or I was being that you know, 9-year-old boy who was larking about because I didn't really like, you know, and getting detention for misbehaving in the class. But then I think what was lovely at some of your events, I just really like the idea that you were modeling, you know, get yourself out of the way and just let through what comes through, like without a self-critical kind of filter of, do I need to
Yeah.
try and do it like Jason or that other person next door? But it's just very refreshing to go, I'm going to open my mouth, let sound out and see what comes out. And I think it's quite a fascinating thing that, you know, I need to do a bit more of in my life. I don't practice it enough at the moment, but I possibly need to connect with you for a bit more tutorial time. Um, but yeah, and talking about that, really, do you want to tell people about the work that you do in terms of like spreading and teaching this kind of work? Because you're sounding quite active with that at the moment, so I think that would be really interesting for people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been doing, as you know, obviously we had a little bit of a chat, like you say, before our interview today. So yeah, my work, I'm doing quite a lot. There's quite a lot expanding, and that's new at the moment. So obviously, I've got the new recording released, which is really exciting. You can get that obviously through Bandcamp. But then I'm doing lots of other work as well. So obviously I've still ongoing do work around sacred sites. I recently did an event at Stanton Drew, and I've done Avebury this year, and I did a bunch last year, and that will be ongoing. But also now it looks like, so there's a couple of places up north. I'm based in the north of England, kind of in the kind of Lancashire area, and I'm starting now. So on the 2nd of November, I'm doing what's like a sacred sound drop-in at a place called the Tara Centre, which is a beautiful space run by a lady called Elham Kashifi. I apologise, Elham, if I've mispronounced your surname. And she yeah, has a wonderful place called the Tara Centre. She runs loads of sound healing practitioner courses herself from there. But I'm another stuff when she does all sorts of donation-based healing work and community projects regarding healing there. But I'm doing like a sacred sound drop-in around vocal sound. So I'm doing a couple of things whereby I do like a meditation, guided meditation with some breath and simple sounding for people to join into, to have a sort of a kind of easy ABC kind of experience of the sound and the energy for themselves. And then I share a bit of sound as part of that as well. So a kind of, yeah, meditation circle. And then in the afternoon, I'm sort of doing one-to-one sessions with people that want to pull through something a little bit, a little bit more in depth, and I bring the sound through, and maybe we bring sound through together, or maybe if they want a bit of individual guidance on building their own practice, then I can do that. And then there's also another place called the Meditation Centre, which is in Dent in the Yorkshire Dales, and that is really exciting. That's actually a space that's been there and active since the 90s, but it's gone through a couple of incarnations, if you like. There's a lady called Eliza that is she ran it at the beginning back in the 90s, and it used to be very, very busy, and they'd have all sorts of teachers and practitioners there. And then it's had a kind of relatively kind of fallow period. It's always been active, but somebody else was running it for a while, and this lady Eliza's just taken over again, and it's sort of just flowering again, which is great. And it looks like I'm going to be doing some regular teaching there going into 2026. The first event I'm running is on November the 15th, where I'm running a workshop. And again, probably some one-to-one sessions after that. So, yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff happening there. And yeah, I think I'm going to be very, very busy going into 2026, which is really exciting.
How cool. Well, oh, the people of the north are very lucky to have you on their doorstep. I hope there's a flood of very interested people in that area that can lap your skills up. Do you also do like online kind of coaching as well for people who are more sort of internet based or who are too far away?
No, that's absolutely right. Thanks for mentioning that, Graham. Yeah, so obviously, again, another one of the things that I'm doing in the back end of this year is between November the 13th and 16th is something called the Globe Sound Healing Conference, which is an free online sound healing conference run by a gentleman called David Gibson. And there's some great practitioners on there, including a guy called Tom Kenyon, which if anyone that's interested in my work, I don't know if you know Tom Kenyon actually, Graham, but you should definitely check him out. You would really like his work. It's amazing voice work. So he's presenting. I'm presenting at the Globe Sound Healing Conference as well. And also from that on November the 29th, I'll be running an online course, 5 p.m. on UK time on the 29th of November. For about 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours. I can't remember actually exactly off the top of my head now. And I'll be running a course there. So that will be some of the building block stuff. So sound and intention and humming and vowel sounds. I'll do some of that and bring some of my own sound work through. So I do that, and I do one-to-ones. I do one-to-ones all the time. So I do online one-to-ones where I just, through whatever medium people prefer, to be honest. I'll do it on Zoom or even WhatsApp video call or what have you, messenger video call, and just bring through sessions for people on a donation basis, because I think also that's a really important thing for me is I don't want people to feel excluded from access to this work via finances. So I always make sure that there's a significant portion of my work is done via donation, and a lot of those one-to-one sessions I do, which are advertised through my Facebook page, Jason Stillwell Sounds. I do those on a donation basis on a regular thing.
Awesome. Well, there's definitely a few dates I need to get in my diary straight after this call to make sure I can attend those on the online things. And I certainly think I need to treat myself to a little individual session with you, because I'd be quite fascinated to do that with you. So I will get in touch with you about that. I'm just going to let you know we've got about 6 minutes left of this recording time, just so that you've got a benchmark, really. What I'm intrigued about, this is a simple question. Do you listen to your own meditation recordings whilst you meditate?
I mean, I have done. Mostly in the I suppose the actual answer is yes, but not. That might sound a bit sort of egocentric or something. But more, I use them sometimes in my workshops. So I think when I'm doing meditation and sound in my workshops, I sometimes use my own recordings then in the sort of workshop settings. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I don't when I'm on my own. No, I don't tend to on my own. I tend to listen to other stuff that I like. I really like Jonathan's stuff and various other things over the years, but yeah.
Well, I'm slightly intrigued to know what a gentleman like yourself listens to for leisure then, because I've got some of Jonathan's, quite a few of his recordings and stuff, and I do listen to those at particular times. But yeah, I'm just intrigued about how do you sonically sort of feed yourself? Is there particular music that you go to that lights you up, that's tried and trusted favorites that kind of, or...
Not really. I mean, yeah. I mean, I suppose, but I mean, the thing is, for me, Graham, in terms of music itself as an experience, like it's always been quite an intense experience for me, music. So if I listen to music, I tend to be really engaged in it. I find sometimes, not always, but sometimes I find like the idea of background music, I find that quite difficult sometimes, because I find it hard to focus on other things if I'm listening to music. Just because I tend to get just very immersed in the music. But I listen to literally, I know it's one of these things that people say, oh, I listen to lots of different kinds of music. But when I say that, I literally mean that. So I'm very happy. I know, like, you know, in spiritual circles, sometimes there's a bit of, you know, I don't know, concern about admitting to listening to certain types of music, but I don't really have that concern. You know, for me, I'm very happy to admit that I listen to funk, hip hop, heavy metal, jazz, ambient music, soundtracks. I really like Radio 6. I love indie. You know, used to love me in and all that stuff, and I love a load of electronic music from the 80s. If you're so I really love music of all kinds, and I love the vitality and the vibrancy of it. So again, you know, I'm aware that some people will say things like, I've heard over the years, you know, people say things like, oh, what heavy rock music was, you know, dark energy or what have you, and I get it. I get what people are saying. Do you know what I mean? But I just don't experience it that way. I feel like it's like honest expression of a certain kind. Do you know what I mean? And that I sometimes like it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not all the time. Like I say, I literally listen to so many different kinds of music, and I've sort of always, as well with my toning, which again I think I've mentioned in our previous interview, I've always tried to even share my toning in a variety of settings, because if I feel it's vibrant and exciting and I like the energy of the person I'm working with, then that works for me. So all sorts. If you want an album to listen to as a recommendation, Talk Talk, Spirit of Eden is maybe my ever.
I have a feeling there's certainly some tracks I know from that, because has that got Life's What You Make It on it?
No, that's one of their earlier albums. That's the Colour Spring, that one, which is brilliant. I really like Talk Talk, but it's the album after that, which is called Spirit of Eden, which is a lot more experimental and kind of ambient and a kind of mixture of kind of jazz and sort of all sorts of, yeah, and sort of open spaces. And I love his vocal. I mean, if you talk about somebody with a powerfully expressive vocal,
Yeah.
I love his work.
I really appreciate that recommendation, because I think when you were going through all the genres that you dip into, I was like going, yeah, tick. I pretty much listen to loads of those things as well, and it's always been a precious relationship with me. Sound, you know, I can be sometimes quite black and white. Of it either just really grabs me and I'm excited about it, or I'm kind of like, it's not really. And I think there's a magic with musicians and vocalists. If somebody's connected to source and they're getting themselves out the way and letting themselves be a channel, I think over time you can just tell, you know, when you see musicians vibing on stage and collaborating, and it's a truly beautiful thing. So I think that Spirit of Eden Talk's quite a lovely way to kind of wind up the interview, because we've just so that we can conserve it. I want to give you my thanks and my best wishes for an amazing future coming out of this, and thank you for shining bright, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you, Graham. You're a superstar, and I really love your energy, and I really value our opportunities to talk. So thank you so much.
Let's keep in touch, Jason. Take care.
Definitely. You take care, my friend. I'll speak soon.
Okay, then. Thanks.